this is me before I started editing it. I just want to preface this video with this whole video contains topics of fasting. If you've got an eating disorder or you suffer from disordered eating, this is not the video for you. I'm going to be blunt about that. It's not the video for you. You will find it potentially quite triggering, so don't watch it, okay? This is your sign to go away. There are better videos you could watch if you're in that state of mind. Don't do that to yourself. So, I'll put a little introduction before this. This is the book that I'm going to be talking about today. If my camera could focus on it, I'd really appreciate that. But this is called Wisdom for the Monastery. It's written by 3 authors. There are 3 sections to it, so I'm going to do this in 3 videos because they're quite distinct topics that require a bit of thing, and also I haven't read the whole thing yet. So this first video is going to be on the first section of the book, which is called Fasting in the Monastery. I had my eye on this book for quite a long time, and I had to wait for it to become within my price range. But eventually it did, and this is a used copy. It's in really good condition. But yeah, if you've got a sort of interest in this sort of thing, I do definitely recommend this book. But if you don't, I don't. But that's just how it is. So to start with, we're going to go through what the hell is a monastic. A monastic is a generalized term can be for a monk or a nun. So if you're not aware, monks are men or assigned male at birth people, nuns are female or assigned female at birth people. Generally there are 2 types. There's cloistered and there's not cloistered. So if you've, like a general term for nun, it's like an umbrella term. You've got actual cloistered nuns and you've got sisters who are out in the community. With monks, you've got cloistered monks and you've got brothers or friars, they're out in the community. When I say cloister, there are 3 different types of cloister, but that's not. Cloister in like a general term means seclusion from general society. So it's called papal cloister. It's a strictest form of cloister, which is where people don't come into the monastery if they're not part of the order, and there'll be like a separate house for people who are being initiated into the order. So they're generally isolated from the outside world. Obviously they go out in times of necessity, but that's a whole different thing. But the rules on cloister depend on the rule of whatever saint the order of monks or nuns follows. So it's different for all of them. Some of them have I can't remember what it is. I don't remember. Some of them have a form of cloister where it is cloister, but because they have an obligation to take in guests and take in visitors, which is called the rule of hospitality, which can be quite an important thing, particularly in the rule of St. Benedict. That's a type of cloister, but even sisters and brothers in the community will have an area of the convent or priory that's reserved for just initiated people. So there is some form of cloister, even if they're not completely cloistered, if that makes sense. That's just an important side note. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'd suggest you just Google what a monk or a nun is, because I don't really know how to explain it. But generally they're people who have taken vows to do certain things, live in a certain community under the guise of the church. It's a bit weird, but it's like a weird concept to introduce to someone who's not together with it. So that being said, the first part of this book is about fasting. You're like, what is that? So what the majority of people are aware of in terms of fasting is what's observed under Islamic law during Ramadan. If I just grab my copy of the Quran, I think it's got some information in it. So I found it. Within the Quran itself, there are several rules that are set out for the month of Ramadan, which is like a period of fasting, and generally it's done from sunrise to sunset. So no water, no food, nothing, but you eat before the sun rises and you eat after the sun sets. You break your fast. So it is generally a cultural practice. The people are most familiar with it in that, context. But the more, I can't think of the word. I've been working all day, so I'm absolutely fried. I really can't think of. Right, I've got my brain a little bit more in order. It's a more generally accepted cultural practice than just in Islam. So monastics in Christianity, particularly Catholicism, because I will come back to that in a minute, have been fasting like for centuries. It's a generally accepted practice of asceticism, which is the renunciation of excess. Basically, you say, "I don't need that. Out it goes." So contrary to what's in Islam, where you've got the prescribed rules of fasting, they're actually set out in the Quran, and I did check, they are actually set out in the Quran. There's no set idea of a fast that's set by the Catholic Church. It's just whatever the rule of the monastery. So monasteries are bound to rules. I think I mentioned this a little bit a while ago. They're bound to rules that are set by a certain saint or whatever, whoever founded the order. They're usually saints. I don't know if they're always saints. We usually set out the form of fast, but the two most common ones are either you have 2 snacks and 1 meal a day, or nothing. The book talks about the journey of a guy doing a 7-day fast where he eats nothing, but he does drink through the day. And when I say drink, there are rules that restrict, in the monastery that he goes to, rules that restrict what he can drink. So it's called non-nourishing drinks. So that's water, that's tea, but not medicinal tea, and not caffeinated tea. And I believe saccharate as well. Saccharate, I don't know. That's on the first day. So he talks about his journey through it and how the peaks and troughs of it, which I find really interesting. It is a generally interesting book. I would recommend it. I think I've said that already. I need to stop saying that. Stop repeating myself. I've got a script here and I'm just ignoring it. So the book does talk about it in the sense that you eat nothing. But generally what people do is there are a couple of days in the year that are set out in the catechism that you are supposed to fast. But what that means to you is set out. It's not there, but it's like a form of giving up something. So for most people that's, 1 meal, 2 snacks if you need them. But it's the idea of sacrifice. So someone who smokes, if they were to give up smoking for those 2 days, that would be counted as a fast, because it's that idea of sacrifice that's necessary rather than actually just eating less, which I find really interesting. So coming back to the book, it's 7 days set. You're supposed to follow along with it, but I didn't. I just read it. So there's 7 little chapters, and he talks about, what he felt on the first day. Because generally people feel unwell when you don't eat, but if you continue to, you hit like a sort of, I think it's ketosis, where you start digesting what's already in your body, and then you feel much better. So that's the idea, but he pairs it with the idea of spiritual fast, which is abstaining from news, abstaining from media, which is surprisingly relevant in the current day. So TikTok, that produces such an amount of dopamine in your brain that you become dependent on it. And I personally found when I tried to give up the app, that was really difficult, because my brain was like, I'm not getting what I want. It was really hard. It's something that my brain has become dependent on, and I don't think that's good. So there's this idea of dopamine fasting in current society, which I think even if you're not a religious person, that's something that's good for you. It helps your brain learn how to regulate again without social media, because these things are designed to be addictive. They are deliberately designed to suck you in. They're deliberately designed to give you that dopamine, and that keeps you coming back to the app. It's deliberate. You are the product. You are the thing that's being manufactured. You are the one that's being exploited in this. So the idea of something as abstinence, even if it feels good to do something, it's not necessarily good for you. But yeah, the book talks about how fasting has been understood as a remedy for hundreds of years. simply because once you hit that point of ketosis, you start to digest what's already in your body. And I don't know how sound the science is on here. Like, my brain's going, needs to be evidence-based. But generally in folk tradition, that point of ketosis is when you start to digest the toxins that are already in your body. So they start to come out and you feel better. I did feel, when I became vegetarian, I did feel a similar way because I was feeling unwell, like physically unwell, because I don't know, I stopped eating meat and then a couple of weeks passed and I felt much better. I felt less polluted, which might not be the case for everyone. It might just be that I have some sort of allergy that I've never realised that I've got, but that's partly why I stick to a vegetarian diet. I find it much less taxing on my digestive system. That's a bit too much information, but so yeah, the book is very interesting. It goes into the historical contexts. Obviously, if you're completely new to the concept of the monastic life, I have other books that I will review in due course that are probably more suited first. But it is a very interesting book, and it's got 2 more sections which I will come and review and talk about once I've actually read them. But yeah, that's my opinions on this. I'm trying to keep this below like 15 minutes. We'll see. But yeah, it's a good book. It's a good book. It raises some interesting questions about the notion of abstinence, even if you're not religious. Like, today's culture is all about consuming, it's all about taking in, and sometimes we just need to say no. We need to say no. I refuse to be part of this. I refuse to consume as much. I refuse to take in too much, because today is all about, you have to be buying things, you have to be doing this, you have to be doing that. And sometimes it's worth remembering that we ourselves, we're enough even without the stuff. Because I think we've all felt the push. I know it sounds cringe, but I'm trying not to be cringe. I'm trying to be normal. But yeah, I'll get around to reviewing the next 2 chapters in due course. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.